All right. Now that we have gone through what it means to have a valid versus a true argument, what it means to have reason and faith, and we can see that both of them are necessary, now we can begin to ask our questions. Is it reasonable to believe in God? Now, look at this. We are not asking for absolute certainty. We're just asking, is it reasonable? Okay? Could a normally intelligent, thinking person, looking at the evidence, reasonably come to the conclusion that God exists, given the evidence sent before us? Now, there is a rule in science. It's more of a principle than a rule. It's called Occam's razor. And Occam's razor says the simplest explanation, which covers all the facts, is the correct explanation. Now, the key here is which covers all the facts. When an explanation is provided, it must be so well developed that it covers all the facts that are relevant to the problem at hand. All right. What is the problem at hand? Well, the major problem at hand is the universe appears to be designed. And I say appears because we don't know that it's designed with absolute certainty. Not through any human knowledge, not through any experiment we can run. We cannot definitely identify a creator through any experimental means. And we'll talk about why that might be the case a little later. Right now we're just pointing out that this appearance could be deceiving, as has often been pointed out by those who do not believe in God. Just because we have a universe that appears to be designed doesn't mean it is. It could be that there are billions of universes simultaneously existing, a multiverse, and the only universe which is capable of supporting intelligent life is a universe which happens to look like it's designed. So the universe we're occupying looks like it's designed only through random chance, not because it really is designed. Okay, that's certainly a conclusion that you can come to. But it is not unreasonable, using Occam's razor, to point out that if the universe appears to be designed, then a correct explanation for that appearance is that, in fact, it is designed. And the interesting thing here is that for scientists recognize that Occam's razor is not always infallibly correct, but they lean on it heavily. The simplest explanation, which covers all the facts, is the correct explanation. The only explanation that they don't use Occam's razor for is for the existence of God. When we use Occam's razor for the existence of God using the design argument, all of a sudden Occam's razor is no longer sufficient for them. Now they need further proof above and beyond Occam's razor as an explanation, and the appearance of design as an explanation. Why is it that Occam's razor works in so many other situations, but is denied to have any applicability here? It's an interesting question. But as I said before, what we're looking at here is the question of whether or not the existence of the universe, of God as the designer of the universe, is reasonable, not whether or not we have absolute certainty to it. Now, if it's reasonable, then we would expect that at least some reasonable men would come to this conclusion, that the existence of God is a reasonable conclusion to have based on the design of the universe. And in fact, that's exactly what Isaac Newton says. This most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. Isaac Newton is the most important scientist probably in human history. Certainly, arguably, one of the most important, and he's certainly in the top 5 if he's not the most important. If you want to have an argument about that, that's not really the point of this discussion. I'm just pointing out that a very intelligent man believed that the argument for design was a very good argument. Now, you could argue, well, look, Isaac Newton was a product of his time. There were a lot of Christians back then, peer pressure, yada, yada. He was deluded by his companions. That's what you get from hanging out with stupid people. All right, perhaps he was. So now that we live in the 20th century, we would expect to find that 20th century scientists do not hold to this idea, right? Well, we're stuck with Werner von Heisenberg, Nobel Prize Physics 1932 for his contribution to quantum physics. He says the first gulp from the glass of natural scientists will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. That doesn't sound like a 20th century scientist who denies the existence of God. In fact, Werner Heisenberg believed in the existence of God. And again, he believed it based on design. Now, but he's living in the 30s. Certainly people who live after 30s, now in the late 20th century, would never buy into this nonsense, right? Well, we have Richard Smalley, the Nobel Prize winner of chemistry in 1996. His discovery of the Buckminster fullerene, a new form of carbon, stated, "Recently I've gone back to church regularly to understand as best I can what it is that makes Christianity so vital. Although I suspect I will never fully understand, I now think the answer is very simple. It's true. God did create the universe." Now, if this is what we're going to be using as a man who is reasonable, and I think most people will claim that Richard Smalley is a fairly reasonable guy, Nobel Prize Chemistry, 1996, he's making the same argument. And of course, he's not alone. As Francis Collins points out, "I am a scientist and a believer, and I find no conflict between these worldviews, and neither, apparently, do the 40% of working scientists who claim to be believers in a personal God." Francis Collins is the leader of the Human Genome Project, one of the most advanced genetic projects in history. 40% of working scientists. Now you can counter, well, 60% do not believe in God. True. But 40% do. And these are the men who claim to be rational, who claim to be serious about logic and analysis of the facts, and they find that it is, in fact, reasonable to believe in God. Obviously, if 40% of the scientists alive today believe in God, and they're scientists, many of the Nobel Prize winners, then when we ask, is it reasonable to believe in God, the answer has to be yes. God is not the figment of the heated imagination of stupid people or ignorant people, but some of the best informed people about our universe firmly believe, because of what they've seen in this universe, that God has designed it, that Occam's razor can be used in this situation just like they use it in every other scientific situation they encounter. Is it reasonable to believe in God? Yes. So if it's reasonable to believe in God, now we have another question. If it's reasonable to believe in God, then which version of God should I accept? We'll leave that for another video. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed it.